Welcome to Music and Message. This is a weekly series that features musical performances and spoken reflection from a diversity of religious and spiritual perspectives. These gatherings seek to nourish the spirit and soul of our campus community. And as we begin, I acknowledge with respect the Onondaga Nation, firekeepers of the Haudenosaunee, the indigenous people on whose ancestral lands Syracuse University now stands. My name is Brian Conkle. I serve as Dean of Hendricks Chapel and Professor of Practice in the Department of Religion. Our theme for today is beginnings, and as we explore this theme through spoken word and through song, we give thanks for those who are participating in our program. We give thanks for Pepe Calvar, Annie Laver, and of course members here of the Hendricks Chapel Choir. As always, we give thanks to Alex Snow, Julie Cajola, as well as Brian Simons from Sensational Events, working to bring this program to thousands of students, faculty, staff, alumni, and friends around the world. To all gathered with us here in person and online, thank you for being with us and for this first song titled The God of Abraham Praise. You can find the words on your program, and we invite you to join in.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for those of you who are here with us in person and to those of you watching online. My name is Annie Laver. I'm the university organist here. And I was on sabbatical last spring, and it is so wonderful to be back. It is so wonderful to have the choir closer together, and it's so wonderful to be able to sing together. So thanks for being part of that today, and thanks to the choir members for sharing their music with everyone today. I'd like to just give a brief note about the music that we chose. This is, in the Jewish tradition, a very sacred time. Our Jewish brothers and sisters are celebrating their high holy days. And so we chose music that honors and reflects Jewish musicians and Jewish traditions, including the song we just sang, which is a medieval Jewish melody. And I've chosen a few organ pieces to share with you by composers coming from a Jewish family, the Mendelssohns. I'd like to start by playing a short piece by Felix Mendelssohn Bartholdy, who was born in Germany and was a cosmopolitan composer and performer, a virtuoso. And he's very important for the organ world because he composed 6 organ sonatas in 1844 and 45, published them in 4 different countries, and they were very innovative in a lot of different ways. This movement comes from his 4th sonata, and it's just a lovely, sort of like a flowing brook is what I think of with this piece. It's got a beautiful melody, and for me, it's just a very calming, lovely piece that I'd like to share with you now.
What do we do the day after everything seems to change? What do we do when our daily routines are suddenly disrupted? What do we do? What do we do when our customs are unexpectedly disorientated, when our habits, our schedules, traditions, rituals, and conventional beliefs are rapidly and radically turned inside out and upside down? For many, 20 years ago, on September 12th, everything had just changed. 20 years ago, at a historic time of collective crisis, tragedy, hardship, for many, everything had just changed. As 20 years ago, just 24 hours after September 11th of 2001, for many, life as they knew it would never be the same. The terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center in New York City, the Pentagon in Northern Virginia, and the crash of United Flight 93 in rural Pennsylvania took the lives of 2,977 people, including 30 Syracuse University alumni. For those here on campus that day, what seemed to be a routine Tuesday morning quickly turned upside down. Within moments after breaking news of breaking towers reached this campus community, a collection of administrators, faculty, and staff created crisis teams to gather to respond. Stunned and silenced, faculty, staff, and students crowded around television monitors, observing as the unbelievable events unfolded before them. The doors of Hendricks Chapel were opened. A candle was placed at the head of the center aisle. And for the days that followed, Syracuse University chaplains rotated shifts to attend to the diverse and dynamic needs of students, faculty, and staff. At 3 p.m. on September 11th of 2001, Hendricks Chapel was filled far past its capacity. People gathered to receive updates and words of comfort. Counselors were mobilized around campus, and buildings remained open late into the night and early into the morning, all to encourage people to gather and find consolation in the presence of each other. And then on September 12th, 2001, the day after everything seemed to change, even as answers were far too hard to find, many immediately and ardently sought ways and means to make good more common. Today, on this September 12th, we too reside in an era of ever-present crisis, and we too are located in an era where everything seems to be changing. While the crises in our midst are undoubtedly different than what took place on the 11th of September in 2001, the events of today clearly have turned many lives upside down. We now live and learn in the midst of COVID-19, anti-Black racism, anti-Semitism, political dysfunction, toxic public discourse, mental and emotional hardship, ecological hardship, economic destruction, countless other personal public traumas that impact the very existence of our lives. We too, on September 12th, are being called upon to acknowledge the life-changing pain in our midst. And although answers in our time are often too hard to find, we too are being called upon to respond in ways that make good more common. And by reflecting upon some of which took place 20 years ago, we can discern and discover some actions for today. About 20 years ago, on the west coast of our country, there was a conference hosted by Stanford University on the topic of cooperation amongst people of different religious traditions and different identities. A young Muslim man named Eboo Patel was in attendance, and alongside several of his friends, they soon realized that they were the only young people there. And as this young group of friends peered around the room, they wondered, why is it that stories about religion always seem so negative? And why is it that young people are always described as a problem? And why isn't there not a movement of young people to create new stories, to build bridges, and to make good more common? The response to their wondering came to them in a moment of inspiration. They thought, why not we be the ones? Why not we, this small group gathered at this small conference? Why not us, and why not now? Why not us, and why not now? To build an interfaith youth movement, to bring people together who might disagree on ultimate truths, but share a common commitment to improve the world for the better. Why not us, and why not now? And then, like many social movements before it, it all began with a few students who had a big idea and no money. Interfaith Youth Corps was born quite literally out of the trunk of Eboo Patel's car. From there, it moved to a basement in the city of Chicago, where the founders built a tiny organization on nights and weekends. One basement led to other basements and churches, synagogues, mosques, where students increasingly turned up to learn about the faith traditions of others and how they might come together in service to a common good. Soon it went from the basement to the streets in the form of the Chicago Youth Council, which brought together students from around the city for interfaith service projects and programs and dialogue. And then as more students got involved, movement that the founders envisioned in that room at Stanford University began to take shape. The idea proved to have power to move people and to truly change people's lives. In response to the attacks of September 11th in 2001, and because of the clear and present need to build cooperation across lines of division, Interfaith Youth Corps incorporated it into a 501c3 nonprofit, and they did so at a time where the very idea of interfaith cooperation felt more important, yet more difficult than ever before. Then they received a $35,000 grant from the Ford Foundation. They moved out of the basement into an office with a small staff and some secondhand computers. What they lacked in resources, they made up for with a committed team, counseled by a wise and patient board of directors who recognized the potential of the organization despite its ragtag beginnings. They began to try new things, learn from their successes, learn from their failures. They created programs, campaigns, convened national gatherings where hundreds of students showed up. They began to witness real signs of success. Between 2003 and 2011, Interfaith Youth Corps tripled its staff and launched programs from interfaith service in Chicago, eventually to the Middle East, South Africa, and India. They partnered with the Clinton Global Initiative, Queen Rania of Jordan, to create an international exchange program. They collaborated with the Tony Blair Faith Foundation. Eboo Patel was eventually asked to speak at the 16th Nobel Peace Prize Forum, and he and Interfaith Youth Corps were profiled by major media outlets, including the New York Times. During this time, the organization also began to experience unique breakthroughs
on college and university campuses, including Syracuse University. And it allowed Interfaith Youth Corps to recognize campus communities as an ideal place for emerging leaders to tackle the hardest questions of our time. And today, after starting in the trunk of a car and being sparked because of the need to respond to September 11th of 2001, Interfaith Youth Corps now has $30 million in assets, all of which are dedicated towards a world where people of different faiths, worldviews, and traditions can make good more common. So what do we do the day after everything changes? What do we do when our routines are disrupted, when our customs are disorientated, habits, schedules, traditions, rituals, conventional beliefs are all turned upside down? The founders of Interfaith Youth Corps, as students, decided to try and make good more common in their way and in their time. I believe that we are now being called upon to make good more common in our way and in our time. Perhaps there's a cause that you feel compelled to contribute to. Perhaps there's a social ill that you feel called upon to help heal. Perhaps there's an undertaking that you wish to serve and support. Perhaps there's a public movement that you believe deserves your personal attention. And if it all seems so overwhelming, perhaps it simply starts with a friend that has wronged you and deep down you know you should forgive. Perhaps there's a neighbor whose views you find troubling, yet now you feel called upon to actually listen with the intent to understand rather than the intent to respond. Perhaps there's a voice inside of your own heart and your own mind that needs to be transformed so that you can love your neighbor and love yourself. Perhaps there's just that itch in your spirit and soul that wants to do more today and tomorrow. Whatever the case, whether big or small, whether public or personal, today, on this September 12th, at a time when everything seems to be changing, we too are presented with opportunities, both big and small, to make good more common. 20 years ago, our world was presented with an opportunity. And today, we too have opportunities, both big and small, to make good more common. May we not be afraid of these opportunities. May we embrace these opportunities. And may we do so together, today and the day after. By God's grace, amen.
This next piece of music was written for a beginning of a different kind. It was written for the composer's wedding celebration and ceremony. Fanny Mendelssohn was Felix Mendelssohn's sister and was a very accomplished musician and composer in her own right. In her time, it was not socially acceptable for a young woman to be a professional musician in her circles. So most of her music was on a more intimate scale and for family and friends. But she did write a couple of organ pieces. and they were both for the wedding processional and recessional when she got married to the painter William Hensel. So this piece is the music she walked down to the aisle listening to, this prelude in F major.
Thank you again to all for being here, both in person and online. You are invited to be with us here in Hendricks Chapel, 4 o'clock every Sunday throughout this semester. As we prepare to depart, please receive this blessing. May we depart as instruments of peace. Where there is hatred, let us sow love. Where there is injury, fear, despair, darkness, and sadness, let us offer faith, hope, light, and joy. May we console and be consoled, understand and be understood, love and be loved. May we give and receive, confess and forgive, let go and be born again. May we depart this day and always in peace. Amen.